to the Weird Warriors podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
And on this podcast, we normally take a look at the Weird War Tales comic book series published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. However, on this episode, we're turning the lights down, we're getting cozy, and taking a look at G.I. War Brides number 3. But first, my man Rich has a little something to lay on you.
Full disclosure, I generally don't do retroactive histories for the special missions because I want to make sure the paying public, gets the big news. So I'll have a bunch for you next time, promise. Which moves us on to the Intel report. Because I love having fun with Intel reports for the war romance episode, what were they thinking? A 2005 one-shot from Boom Studios. Keith Giffen and Mike Leib rewrite an old public domain war comic with new text. In this case, Charlton's War and Attack #1 from fall 1964, with art by Wally Wood and Bill Molno. I have since bought the original for comparison purposes. From the inside cover. Herewith, gentle reader, presented for good reasons not to let your work fall into the public domain. You have been warned. So Keith Giffen goes to this flea market and finds this old Wally Wood comic. He calls Mike Leib and says, "We can desecrate this." Once Mike Leib finishes jumping up and down like a schoolgirl clapping with glee, they called Ross Ritchie and misrepresented the project, and this is what he got. The combat crazy cuties of Coyote Ugly Company. The War Next Door. Hearts and Minds. Don't ask. Don't tell. I twisted Max's arm to go out and get both books because he's generally a big Keith Giffen homer. Max?
Yeah, that didn't work out as planned. I am a Keith Giffen homer, and he is normally the source of some of the funniest stuff I've ever read in a comic book. Laugh out loud funny stuff like all I'll say is Ambush Bug and Superman switch minds, and you see Superman running around saying, "I can't see." Hilarious. But this book is the most misguided attempt at, old man tries to write edgy humor. The problem I have with it is all the jokes in the book, all of them punch down instead of up. They're not funny in that they're just not funny, period. But it's like, haha, get it. These women are ugly. They look like men, blah, blah, blah. It's all punching down at marginalized targets and stuff. It's mean humor. It didn't age well. It sucks. I hated the entire experience of reading that book. I got a copy of the original too. I liked that. That was good. How about if you're going to desecrate something, get in there and do it smartly. Get in there and like do some humor that actually shakes things up. Don't just jump on it. This felt like something written by a bunch of, sorry, Rich, frat bros who were half buzzed and were like, "Oh, this is really funny." This was beneath Giffen. And from what I've heard, they did a bunch of these and they're all kind of crap. From the reviews I saw, normally I don't care about reviews, but they seem to echo the feelings I had reading through this book. So, it sounded amazing when Rich told me about it. I dove into this 2 feet in. I was like, let's do it. But especially for this Valentine's Day episode, I gotta say, that's a side of Keith Giffen that I'm glad I was unaware of until I read this book. So yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Didn't mean to start on an unintended down note, but hey, whatever. Give it a peek anyway. So moving on. G.I. War Brides was published by the Canadian Superior Comics Publishing for 8 issues from April 1954 to June 1955. And spoiler alert now, we have no idea who did any of the creative work in this issue. None. Except for the scripter of a 2-page text story later. So, yeah. And I'm going to read the banner underneath one of the ad. It's something, G.I. War Brides, August 1954, #3, published bi-monthly by Superior Publishers Limited, 2382 Dundas Street, West, Toronto 9, Ontario, Canada, authorized as second class matter, March 4, 1954, by the Post Office, Buffalo, New York, under the Act of March 3rd, 1879. Hey, the Act of March 3rd, 1879. What's that? So here we go. The Dominion Land Act was an 1872 Canadian law that aimed to encourage the settlement of the Canadian prairies and to help prevent the area being claimed by the United States. There's a lot of that going on right now, isn't there? The act was closely based on the U.S. Homestead Act of 1862, setting conditions in which the western lands could be settled and their natural resources developed. The Act of March 3rd, 1879 was a significant piece of legislation in Canada's history aimed at providing additional rights to homestead settlers on public lands within railroad limits. This act allowed settlers to claim additional land beyond their original homestead entry, provided they had already occupied and cultivated the land for at least a year. It was a response to the need for more land for settlement and was part of the broader effort to encourage settlement in the Canadian prairies in Western Canada. The act was approved on March 3rd, 1879. And had a lasting impact on the development of the region. What this has to do with a comic book is beyond me. Someone else looked that up, one of our Canadian listeners. Help us out. Cover detail. GI War Brides is in white block letters on a red background. 10 cents. Taking up half the cover is a crying, short-haired brunette wearing a yellow scarf. Over her left shoulder, a master sergeant and a blonde in a green dress are in a passionate embrace. Behind them, a row of GIs are getting off an airplane, lugging their duffel bags on their shoulders. A large blue banner under the couple proclaims, "My jealous heart, dance hall dame, kisses for two only, unwanted." Cover date, August 1954. Old Comics Man. Seen on eBay for $33. Killjoy. Tears fall from the corners of your eyes, not in the middle of them. This almost looks like bad makeup. And sweet jumping, Jesus. I don't know what kind of airplane the soldiers are getting out of, but that tail wheel looks like something right out of a Looney Tunes cartoon. I mean, look at that thing. The windows on the fuselage look suspect too, going all the way back to the tail. Maybe I could argue about where the damn wings are, but I'll pretend this is a rear door on the plane that the soldiers are climbing out of. Going right to the CNC. Tear placement aside, the artist does a pretty good job with body language. The facial expression of the woman in front, the lover's embrace, the GIs and the stairs. Good thing, because they can't draw an airplane worth a damn. The white on red title pops. I like the Superior Comics logo in the upper right corner of a maple leaf and a black circle, and the 90-degree angle in the upper left corner proclaiming brides on each end, presumably for sorting purposes on Canuck newsstands. Wow, this is awkward. Two women come to welcome Johnny home? I wonder what this backstory is. Will we find out somewhere inside? Let's see.
Yeah, from the smudged up copy I was looking at, that looked more like a cannabis leaf inside the Superior comic stamp. So I'm just going to pretend it is, so this cover can get a bonus point. Also, that weird catty corner brides in the title caught my eye too, and not in a good way. I also wondered if this was for some added visibility on the magazine racks, but overall, it looks bad. As for the rest of the cover, it is almost, in my opinion, 100% perfunctory. But I will give credit for the job done on the foreground female's fashionable follicles. Very important in a romance comic to get the hair right. And that hair is pretty cool. I just hope the interiors of this comic book show a bit more effort. Rich is going to let us know if it starts out that way.
Unwanted. 8 pages. Synopsis. I was only a bride, but torture filled my heart because my lieutenant husband seemed to be taking more than a new interest in an old flame. I was visiting a girlfriend in a small town when some friends of hers gave her a surprise party, and there I was in a silly little cotton dress looking like a country bumpkin and meeting a very charming stranger. So you're Sylvia Brooks. I thought your type went out with hoop skirts. Ponytails, of all things. I'm pleased to meet you, Lieutenant. Lieutenant Dick Saunders was the last to leave because we seemed to have so much to talk about. We agreed to meet again the following night. Dick was early, and as I expected, surprised too. What happened? You grew up all of a sudden. Those braids were an accident. I usually look like this. It would be a cinch to fall in love with a beautiful girl like you. Careful, soldier. I'm a heart stealer. I warn you. From then on, even when I returned home, we dated steadily. Dick wasn't stationed too far away, so that made it all the more convenient. We soon professed our love for each other and agreed to marry. Mother and Daddy liked Dick, and they were delighted with our news. After we were married, Dick took me home to meet his parents. I was secretly surprised at the splendor of his home. He had never indicated his folks were wealthy. He introduced me to his mother and sister, and I could tell his mother didn't like me. Naturally, I couldn't tell Dick how uncomfortable I was that day, but it was soon forgotten in the excitement of finding an apartment. Dick, do you think your family likes me? Of course they do, sweetheart. How could they help it? I hope so. It's so very important to me. Forget it, little worry bird. I just want you to be as happy as I am. All I did was worry about my clothes, my manners, my speech, for I had never known people like Dick's friends, and the night we gave our first party I didn't enjoy a minute of it, for more reasons than one. Dick's mother and sister never arrived, and then I accidentally dropped a drink in the lap of one of Dick's friends. Clumsy idiot! Dick consoled me. Stop blaming yourself, dear. It could happen to anyone. I'd like you to meet Lily Bond. Lily is more his type than I'll ever be. They talked all night long, and I was able to slip away unnoticed. They didn't need me. No one needs me. Proof enough of where I stand. I had failed again, and I so wanted Dick to be proud of me. For days I brooded over that party until finally I had something else to worry about. What to wear? Because Dick's mother and sister called to ask if they could visit one afternoon. I finally chose the most expensive new dress Dick bought me. They asked me if I was going to a party, and then I blundered into offering them a snack so soon after lunch. They soon left. Dick's time seemed all taken up with Lily. I just couldn't face another public humiliation of myself. And so it was really my fault that they spent hours together. I saw them drive up to the door in Lily's car, and to my horror, I saw her lean over and kiss my husband. I rushed to bed. I didn't want him to know that I saw him, because I didn't know what to say. I pretended to be asleep, and in the morning, Dick moved about to not awaken me, and so I let him think I was still sleeping. I got up after he left feeling ill. I knew in my heart I had to leave. I couldn't stay and spoil his life with Lily. I wrote a note and left it where he could see it. Dear Dick, I know it has all been a mistake. Your family doesn't accept me, and you no longer love me, so I'm leaving. But as I leave, I get so dizzy I can hardly see. I slip to the floor in a coiling black fog, and consciousness shut off like a closed door. I awakened in a hospital room with Dick's mother gazing anxiously down at me. Before I spoke, I heard her sigh in relief. What happened to me? Nervous strain, in your condition. Condition? A baby? Oh no! Now what shall I do? We saw your note, Sylvia. I think we better explain something to you. You're everything we've ever wanted in a wife for Dick. We were afraid to press our friendship and love. Thought you young folks should have some privacy. It's all too late. Dick doesn't love me anymore. Dick enters the room. I love you with all my heart. Oh, Dick, what about Lily? I helped her elope. It was a big secret. Gosh, Sylvia, you won't leave us now, will you? Mother's already planning for her grandchild, and I have a few plans for our future, too. I throw my arms around him. Oh, darling, what a silly girl I've been. The end. No killjoy. CNC. Spoiler alert, this is another one of those somehow increasingly less rare issues that Max got to do his CNC first. We got off to a great start with the splash panel of Dick going for the throat of Sylvia, head back, eyes closed, blonde hair cascading in waves. Followed by page 2, panel 4 that Max also calls out of Sylvia lying in bed, hair down, eyes closed, wearing something slinky. Oh, Dick, you're in for a surprise. Little scrubbed face is really a big girl, and she likes you very much. Oh, yeah. That might be the most suggestive panel we've seen in any of the romance books. Page 4, panel 1, Max will get to part of it, but not meeting the wealthy parents of the groom until after the wedding? I know it's 1954, but surely everyone could have met before the big day, right? I hate the dress she wears on page 6. Canadian comics must be more risque than the American ones were because we get a see-through slip and a lacy top on page 7, panel 2. I like the pass-out panel on panel 6 of the same page. Page 8, panel 1, nervous strain in your condition. Oof. The mother-in-law found out Sylvia was pregnant before Sylvia did? No HIPAA 1954, eh? Classic vintage overwrought woman in this one.
All right, so I'll start off my CNC by getting this out of the way first. Dick, 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 dick. All right, all the dick jokes that could be made from the dialogue in this, and probably have amazingly not been made present in our scripts. And so now I continue. All right. Page 1, panel 1 kicks off with a phrase we'll see again in this issue. I was only a bride. If there's more to that phrase than just saying only a woman, I don't see it and I'm not familiar with it. But it comes up again and again. Page 2, panel 2 brings us another term I had to look up with little scrubbed face. And that seems to imply innocence. More on that later, too. Or fresh facedness. Ah, the infantilizing of women. Of course, right after that, we get a Cinemax alert in panel 4, as Rich alerted you to. So, yep. First the infantilizing, then the sexualizing. You got to do it in the proper order, folks. Page 3 kicks off with a date coming to an end on another night that is bright as hell, if you ask me. But page 4, panels 1 and 2 offer up one of my favorite parts of this story. Dick's mother's proto-Cruella de Vil hairdo. Honestly, top marks. And thanks to the artist for this little treat in a sea of slog, in my opinion. Spoiler alert here for, last words. Also, I was able to hold on to the idea that Dick's parents were two women until panel 1 of page 5 ruined that for me, with our supposed protagonist mentioning Dick's mother and sister. Up until then, it wasn't really clear who these two women were that the bride-to-be or bride was meeting. They didn't actually say. It's like, I went to meet Dick's parents, and then there's two women in the room. That's it. I mean, we don't see Big Dick, or Dick Sr., or Dickus Majoris. What, you thought I wasn't going to do that at all for the entire story either? We never see Dick's father. All this romance and zero daddy dick pics. But hey, at least Mama Cool Hair lays down some classically passive-aggressive bitchery in panels 1 and 2 of page 6. To be fair, that dress does look like something out of I Dream a Genie. That's right, I said it. Snap. Our girl's anxiety is not only off the chain on this page, but also pretty telling of what passes for a faux pas in these times. Too early for a snack? Oh no! And perhaps also telling of the times, or at least the times that this comic wants you to believe existed even for a second. She pretends to sleep after seeing him kiss another woman right outside their door. Okay, pretty sure that's not how it would go in any relationship I've ever been aware of. Sticking right in that mode, though, we see the couple's requisite separate beds on page 7, panel 1, and panel 6 gives us a downright poster-worthy panel of our hectic heroine and that surreal close-up of her hysterical fainting episode. Honestly, great work there. And another thing to put a pin in for this issue, folks. Page 8 closes out with some nice unrealistic coloring that you guys know I love in panels 1 and 4. But, whew boy, here we go again with a romance comic story that's all about how silly and confused our poor dumb little scrub-faced woman was. So there we go, folks. That's story number 1. And it took us on quite a ride. So let's see what we have up next in this issue. And the second story is appropriately called Kisses for Two Only. It's a 7-pager, and we have no idea who worked on the thing. Synopsis goes like this, and the first phrase may be a little familiar to you. I was only a bride, but another woman declared herself into my life, or should I say, my husband's. Bill was stationed at a base only a few miles out of the town where I lived, and shortly after we met, we fell in love. He was an enlisted man from moderate circumstances in civilian life, and most important of all, I loved him. I can't offer you anything special, Connie, but I'm certain we'd make a go of it. I was never anxious for worldly good, Bill. Then there's only one more thing to discuss. The date. Make it soon, honey. I'll have to talk it out with my parents, but it will be soon. I promise. My happiness always came first with my darling parents, and when they felt sure Bill was the one I really wanted, our home was thrown into a flurry of wedding preparations. Then finally, the big day arrived. We didn't even have a honeymoon. There was no time. Instead, we moved into the sweetest little apartment in the world. But, and a very important but, it was too expensive. We had to make plans to live elsewhere. One of the fellows at the base found a big furnished house, big enough for two families. He suggested that we move in with them. What do you say? I know it's not the greatest arrangement, but it is a solution. Move in with another couple? I'd move into a tent if it was necessary. I love you. Bill hadn't met Mrs. Alice J., and of course, I had to meet them both. And so, we made a date to get together. Thus began an interlude in my life I'll never forget. Say, Charlie, you never told me Alice was such a knockout. I've got an idea we're going to get along just fine. Do you people play bridge? I'd love a foursome. Sounds like a great idea. After they left, I rushed into Bill's arms to confess something that bothered me. I can't help it. I don't think I'm going to like her. Now, baby, don't start. We all have to live together. Besides, Venus herself couldn't impress me. I'm too much in love with my wife. I lay in bed that night thinking, some women are born flirts. I just couldn't help thinking it's going to be dangerous with her living under the same roof. Soon we were all settled down to everyday living, and I had more to learn about Alice J. Why don't you sit down for a while, honey? I'm getting tired just watching you. I want to finish Bill's shirts. Slave. If Charlie wants his shirts done, he sends them out. I didn't promise to work myself to death. Besides, what's a husband for but to take care of us? Charlie was the first to get his overseas papers. Bill was ready to console Alice. I felt bad for her, but not to the point where I was willing to share my husband. I don't think she felt half as bad as she pretended. Alice lost no time turning to her big brother, for only the next morning. Are you driving to town? Poor little me wants a ride to the movies. Maybe I can wait and get a lift home, too. What could I say? It was really up to Bill, and he didn't seem the least bit reluctant to take her. I hated her, but what could I do to stop her? That was only the beginning. Alice found one excuse after another to be with Bill. Because her game was so obvious to me, I blamed her more than Bill. And then, in my misery, I wondered how long I could control myself from making a scene. Bill was now almost a stranger. No more little intimate chats. I couldn't trust myself to talk to him privately because I'd never be able to hold back my hurt and resentment. But it had to stop somewhere. Then one day I noticed something I hadn't seen that morning in my anxiety. Alice's bags were standing in the hall, and in our room, Bill's luggage was down from the top shelf. He was getting ready to leave with her. That wench! I knew she'd do something like this. I just knew it. The minute I heard Bill enter, I jumped up and greeted him with a torrent of words through my sobs. I saw your luggage. Why didn't you have the courage to tell me you're running off with a married woman? I never dreamed it would turn out this way. I thought you meant our marriage vows like I did. What does my luggage have to do with my marriage vows? I'd let her take anything I've got if it would hasten her departure. I've spent days trying to find her a place to move. Didn't she tell you? No, no one told me. What was I to think? She treated me like, oh, I hate her. So do I, honey. In fact, I asked her to move. I had no idea you'd misunderstand. Poor little kid. You must have thought your man was a skunk. I throw my arms around him. No, but I almost died because I thought you didn't love me anymore. Forgive me for doubting you. I love you so much, Bill. The end. the ever-loving end. There's no killjoy that we could bother to look up here, could stand to look up here. So I'm going to kick off things with my comments and commendations because I had a little fun with this. The image of Alice in the splash panel immediately made me think of Marvel's first costume design for Black Widow circa 1964. I included a couple of panels that really drive it home. In my opinion, one of Black Widow's best costumes, but she only wore it for a little while. But those those are such a match. But Black Widow's costume is 10 years after this comic book. Anyway, that aside, before I just go off on how cool those 60s Avengers comics were instead of talking about this. But man, if you thought the tears being shed on the cover were weird, get a load of the slug sliding down Connie's face in this panel. No wonder Bill is looking elsewhere. And like I said, there's a return of the phrase right at the start. I was only a bride in that caption box. It's weird. Almost as weird as the Bob Hope-worthy ski jump noses on display in panels 4 and 5 on page 2. And hold your noses on that front, too. True believers. Had to get one more Marvel joke in there. Panel 2 of page 3 has Alice generously gifting us with the I'd love a foursome line, and her hubby is sporting just the most awesomely weird balding man's hairstyle, which is on glorious display in panel 3. 2 bonus point worthy hairstyles for 2 stories in a row, folks. And you know me, I like the alt coloring used on Connie's close-ups in panels 2 and 3 as well. And Alice, a favorite character of mine in this issue, again, spoiler alerts, she kicks things off nicely by straight up calling Connie a slave on panel 2, page 4. And panel 6 of page 5 gives us what is, in my opinion, a better title for this little tale and Connie's query of, why is Bob such a boob? And here we go. Page 6, panel 5, features another poster-worthy surreal panel of a hysterical woman. What is there, a quota for this? If so, don't worry. This issue is going to fill it right up. And least you think the other romance comic requirements are going to get short shrift here. Page 7, panel 5 makes sure that Connie gets called a poor little kid. And the moral is that sometimes women get all mixed up in their silly little heads. Whew. Had us worried for a sec there.
We start right off in the splash panel with Alice smoking a cigarette in a holder like FDR. Highbrow! Bill was from moderate circumstances in civilian life? What does that even mean? Sorry, he doesn't have a brand new Packard in the driveway. Page 3, panel 4 shows part of a ceiling chandelier looking down on the couple. Interesting foreground perspective. And panel 6, the overly dramatic back of the hand to the forehead as Connie lays in bed thinking. I know everyone and their dog smoked in the 50s, but the panels of Alice smoking on page 4 just helps sell the she's the bad guy, gal angle of the story. And I'll keep the I Dream of Jeannie references coming with that partial headshot on page 6, panel 3 of Alice. Instead of all these overwrought women weeping in their beds or on their sofas, I'd love to see a good old-fashioned cat fight one of these days. Keep away from my man, bitch! We have a few stories left. Maybe we'll get lucky. Moving on to the aforementioned text piece by Joan Fair. Yeah, it's got to be a pen name. There's no way that's a real name. Divided Love. Synopsis. May Gruber is sick and tired of being ignored by the officers' wives and has no issue tearing into her husband, Sergeant Hank Gruber, about it. You could be a second lieutenant easily enough. We'd live better, be treated better. Barry Taylor knew when to grasp opportunity when it came. Sergeant Gruber is busy packing for maneuvers. Maybe you should have married Barry Taylor. I'm a soldier, not a social climber. Any advancement I get, I want to deserve. No matter what you say, I'm not chasing a commission, not even to please you. Maybe I should have married Barry. At least he'd be concerned about the future. More pay, a higher rank. Hank puts his cap on and grabs his sack as he walks out the door. All right, I think we both know where we stand. It's up to you. When I get back, you can tell me whether or not you want a divorce. May sobs as Hank slams the door and her eyes go to the phone. Barry was going on maneuvers too. In fact, he was commanding the tank Hank was riding in. He had to get up and go. Married to Barry, she'd be playing the proper role, and she called his number on the telephone. Barry, she says in a warm voice, if you care to drop by after maneuvers. Hank, let's forget about Hank. Later, she watches the column of military vehicles heading towards the proving grounds. She mouths the words, Mrs. Barry Taylor. Days pass. The maneuvers were supposed to last 3 days, but 4 passed, and still Hank and Barry hadn't come back. Calling headquarters, she's shocked to learn that there had been a bad accident and there was a news blackout. Her thoughts went instantly, not to Barry, but to Hank, her husband, the man she'd loved all along. If he'd have her. She'd invited Barry over after maneuvers. What if they came back together? But what if Hank was dead? She hears the column returning to base, and suddenly Hank was standing there, expectantly. May throws herself at him, kissing him passionately through her tears. So I guess you do kind of love me after all. Oh, I do, darling. I thought I wanted Barry, but I don't. Never. Only you. You heard about the news blackout. One of the munitions trucks exploded and blasted the hell out of some of the tanks. I saved some lives. Barry didn't. He'll be cashiered for cowardice. The colonel decorated me. Of course, it still doesn't make me an officer or a gentleman. That's all right, Sergeant Gruber. You'll always be commander of my heart. The end. And then they have a little end piece written by Joan Fair. Readers invited to write. Joan Fair will endeavor to analyze and help solve problems of the heart for readers of GI War Brides and forthcoming issues. Replies will be published here. Under no circumstances will Miss Fair answer letters personally, so please do not make such a request. If you have a problem you would care to submit, write to the address below. Miss Fair will give it an earnest consideration and publish a reply on these pages at the earliest possible moment. All letters are confidential, and the names and addresses of those writing in will not be disclosed. Write to GI War Brides, Joan Fair, 2382 Dundas Street, West, Ontario 9, Ontario, Canada. That's gold in and of itself. Quick little killjoy. Gruber picked up his sack. You mean his duffel bag?
Yeah, given the context of that scene, I don't think they mean that because he's kind of telling her off. So Gruber grabs his sack while he's talking to her. I think that means what you think it means.
Risque Canadian comic book. Who knows? CNC. In my youth, when I was first thinking about joining the service, my mom wanted me to be an officer. When I did finally sign up, I had a college degree already. Getting a commission would have been relatively easy, but I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be enlisted, get my hands dirty, be the guy that does the job, not tell someone else to do it. So I'm here for what Sergeant Gruber is saying. And what nerve! May hits on the commander of Hank's own tank, and Barry appears to be game? Blue Falcon alert. But don't you worry. Hank's a hero, and Barry's a coward getting kicked out of the army. The grass isn't always greener, May.
Hey, and as is becoming a trend here on the show, I actually read the text piece. And this was, in fact, one of the most surprising entries in the book, with its pointed mention of a caste system in the army, like actual kind of criticism of the army's inner workings, which, how could you? The appearance of the phrase an officer and a gentleman was cool, and even talk of divorce in a romance comic. May Gruber lays down some harshness too, with her what a man was personally wasn't enough thoughts, and once again, a line of dialogue gives us a better title for the story, with the commander of my heart. That would have been a better title, I think. I was also interested in the whole, as Rich got into, submissions to Joan Fair bit at the end. Looks like this book had their own kind of Dear Abby conceit going on, which I didn't expect them to put the effort into. Have I been missing out because of my previous aversion to these prose pieces? I doubt it, but maybe. So, here we go, folks, bounding off the text piece into another comic book story. We have a 7-pager that is called My Jealous Heart. Synopsis for this one goes a little something like this. I wanted things with a desperation born from the fact that I never had much. But I should have realized love is not the fulfillment of an ambition. It is a gift of the gods. I never had much in life, but I had big ideas. One way I felt sure of getting what I wanted out of life was to marry. It probably didn't make sense. I ended up with Phil Sands, a serviceman. Just think, at last, a home, a man, all the comforts of life. We were married practically on the run, and Phil had to report right back to his base. I was so thrilled with everything. I didn't mind until we got there. A Quonset hut? You must be joking, Phil. Not really in one of those shacks. I expected so much more. For crying out loud, don't cry. As soon as I make rank, we'll get a break. You'll like it after a while. Lots of couples our age live here. I had no choice. This was to be my home until we could afford better. Actually, it wasn't too bad, but so unlike what I wanted. I hated it. I never thought marriage was going to be like this. One night, we were invited to a party. It was the first social life to present itself, and I was determined to be the hit of the evening. So what if we were late because I wanted to look wonderful? One of the wives tried to strike up a conversation with me. I wondered who lived around me in these quaint little houses. It isn't a bad living if you don't mind roughing it. Quite a change from my home life, though. After that, each day was like the one past, and boredom settled over me like a dead weight. All Phil wanted to do was study, so we never went out. One day, Mary broke up the monotony. She rushed from her house sobbing. Jim's gone. 2 weeks now. These training missions last for ages. I'm so lonely I could die. Is that all? Why don't you have dinner with us tonight? Why did I have to say that? She'll be such a bore. Having Mary as a guest once wasn't too bad, but Phil extended a permanent invitation she didn't have the grace to turn down, and from then on, she was always around. Too bad she doesn't move right in with us. You'd like that, wouldn't you? She's a lonely girl. If I was shipped out, I wish someone would look after you. It wouldn't hurt us to be nice to her. What is this? A marriage or a club for lonely hearts? If you're jealous, you should be ashamed of yourself. Love is built on trust. Because they both attended classes, they became more friendly than ever, and hate began to smolder within me for Mary. They probably don't go to any old school at all. I decided to follow them. I'm not the fool they think. Of all the things I expected, I wasn't prepared to witness what I saw. A jewelry store. He bought Mary jewelry. He said he never liked jewelry on me, the cheat. When he gets home tonight, he'll get a good piece of my mind. When Phil opened the door, I turned on him with all my anger. The voice that came out of my throat sounded like a stranger, but the words were mine. I had rehearsed them all evening. I caught you. I saw you shopping with your dream girl. You ought to be horsewhipped. What? You followed us? I'm going to cure you once and for all. Our marriage has been a nerve-wracking experience to me, thanks to your silly little jealous ways. He pulls a box bracelet out of his pocket. Your name is engraved on the back of this. A half-year anniversary present. And you've even taken the joy out of this. For me? Anniversary? Oh, Phil, I'm sorry. But what would you think? It's only because I love you. Love? You haven't grown up enough to love anyone but yourself. Those words were true. I hadn't been a real wife. I never gave up anything for marriage. In fact, I gained more than I ever had. Phil's arms went around me. This was my world, only I hadn't realized before how much it meant to me. I guessed he already knew. I had changed already. Happy anniversary, darling. Oh, Phil. Phil, dearest. The ever-loving end. No killjoy that we could think of. CNC, I'll kick it off here. If you didn't already think that these romance comics were largely just brainwashing pamphlets for teaching a young woman how to behave, then let the blatantly fourth wall breaking PSA on page 1, panel 3 clear things up real good for you. And if you thought the hysteria meter was high enough already, then strap yourself in for the emotional roller coaster that is the caption box on page 5, panel 2. But wait, there's more stereotypes. The first panel on page 3 reminds us all that women be taking too much time getting ready, but it almost makes up for that with Terry's nicely evil close up in panel 4. Also, panel 5 serves up another odd turn of phrase, with Terry saying that Mary tried to freeze her. Just, I like these little turns of phrase you find in the older comics. And art wise, panel 4 of page 4 delivers the first Ditko esque looking moment in the story, with not only the way she and her clothes are drawn, but in the way her own thoughts cast her as a dishonest, two faced fake, like so many of Ditko's ill fated characters. You know, him with his morality is either good or bad. You have, like, if you're deceitful, you are bad. If you are truthful, you are good. The whole panel gives me Ditko vibes, and that's not a bad thing. The artist really does seem to have the most fun when they get to draw Terry being bad, and you can see another clear example of that in panel 6 of page 5. On page 6, panel 2, they also seem to be having fun with the fashion part of the assignment, as evidenced by Terry's excellent Dracula style collar. And there's some nice silhouette use and scene setting work in panels 3 and 4, too. And yep, it's the moment you've been waiting for. Panel 6 of this page comes through with another, you guessed it, poster worthy, surreal panel of a hysterical woman. There really should be a coffee table book of these. I'd buy it. as, as if that wasn't enough, page 7 opens with another great shot of a PO'd Terry with a really cool gown on. And again, the whole panel gives off some Ditko vibes to me. Also, we get the line, "You ought to be horsewhipped." I really like that. That just made me chuckle as soon as I saw it. Again, a little edgier, these Canadian comics. Before, yes, sadly, the whole thing ends up being just another case of, say it with me, a poor mixed up woman who gets things all twisted up in her silly little head.
Probably didn't make sense that I'd ended up with a serviceman. Not just a serviceman, an enlisted serviceman. Urge to swear. Rising. Get bent, lady. This one reminds me of last year's book where I hated every lead in every story. Got another skin panel on page 2, panel 6. Telling the other wives she's essentially slumming it in the Quonset hut, page 3, panel 4, is another way to endear yourself to others. But I have to admit, my eyes perked up a bit on the very next panel when it's revealed Mary gave up her Jaguar when she moved to the base, probably in XK 120 or 140. I own a Jag, and my father-in-law owns several. So yeah, Mary losing her mind after Jim being gone 2 whole weeks on page 4, panel 4. My wife has had to deal with that, or worse, for 15 years. Try 2 months, or during World War II, the duration of the war plus 6 months. Drama! And a 6-month anniversary present? What is this, high school? Phil, you're trying way too hard. Terry's a piece of work. Advancing on to the last story of the book, Dance Hall Dame. 8 pages. What I was doing all these lonely nights my husband was in the service isn't a nice story. My own stupidity was the cause of it all. Because Larry was going to be shipped out, he thought we should hold off our marriage until his return. But I wanted to be his wife more than anything in the world. It took words and more words. But I finally convinced Larry that marriage for us would be wonderful no matter what our present circumstances. And so we had a small, quiet wedding. We took a few rooms in a big old mansion, and I started to learn all the things a wife has to know. My orders came today. Shipping out. So soon? I'll be just as miserable as you will, honey, but it won't be for long. You were right about marriage, though. I'll feel so much closer to you. But I'll hate being without you. If only you didn't have to go. Poor little girl, no one around to look after you, and you're so darn innocent. I couldn't go out and get a job because I wasn't skilled or trained in anything, so I didn't know where to start. Life was full of emptiness until one day I got a special delivery from Larry. He'd be stationed at the new base for several weeks, and I decided to surprise him with an unannounced visit. I caught the first train I could, and it cost me my last cent, but it was worth it. I'd soon be with Larry, and everything would be all right. Upon arrival, I went directly to the docks. I was horrified to learn that Larry's ship, the Rover, and unexpectedly sailed that morning. Whatever could I do? I'd have to get a job to earn a fare home. Through my frightened tears, I saw a sign that was never to be forgotten in my life. Waitress wanted. But the owner wanted an experienced waitress, which I wasn't. If only they'd hired me. I next find a poster advertising beautiful girls, 10 cents a dance. I could dance a little and went inside. The owner took to me right away. Yeah, the innocent type might do good around here. You're hired. Daisy will fix you up for wardrobe. I wasn't used to the kind of dress I was put in. Without even realizing what I'd done, I became a dance hall hostess. It was a cheap, horrible place where the blare of the music stopped you from thinking of anything but how long it would take for the evening to end. If Larry ever saw me, I hated the touch of any man but Larry, but I had to get some dances or I wouldn't earn anything. Night after night, I fought to be gay and sell a lot of tickets. Worse still, I hadn't heard from Larry. When a letter finally did arrive, forwarded from the old landlady, I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. I lied and said I was a secretary in an office, rather than in this nasty room that took almost all of my pay. I'll never be able to get away from this awful life. The web around me seemed to tighten. My mail to my husband was full of lies, and I wondered where it would all lead to. I had a pitiful amount of money saved, but it seemed I could never get enough to escape. One day, the boss wanted to see me. I want to talk to you privately with you. I've had my eyes on you for weeks now. You ain't cut out for this kind of work, honey. Besides, I'd go for you. I was totally unprepared for what happened next as he grabbed me. I fought like a wildcat. Let go of me, you beast! Why you? If it wasn't so hard to get dames in this business, I'd fire you in a minute. And you'd better get a smile on your face while you're working, too. Lose my job. What a joy it would be to just walk out those doors and never return. But I couldn't. Not without some money. I avoided my boss, but I knew he would certainly fire me now if I didn't please his customers. So I threw myself into dancing with a big fake smile on my face. As the music blared away to a screeching close, I spun around the room in time with the applauding sailors. One face was as much as a blur as another, until I finally saw someone standing at the door. Larry! I ran after him as he stormed out, begging him to listen. Boy, did you have me fooled, sister. I'm not listening to you anymore, taxi dancer. That goes forever. We're through. My sweet little innocent wife. What a joke. Nothing mattered then. I didn't have the money to last a week, but I knew I had to get away from that place. It had already cost me my husband. I returned to my room and packed to leave. I knocked at the door. It was Larry. I'd like to talk to you, quietly. I can't believe you didn't have a reason. I was humiliated and hurt. I burst into tears as I told the story. I followed you, but you had shipped out and I had no money to get back. I was so frightened. To me, it was a job where I could earn my fare home, but it wasn't that simple. By the time I paid for my room rent, but your letters, you told me everything was swell. What could I say? You would have been so worried. I kept living in the hope I could straighten out this mess by myself. I didn't do anything wrong. You're the only man in the world for me. He embraced and kissed me. Don't tremble, baby. I'm home. You've learned a lot since I went away, but those are the things I'll teach you to forget. The end. Killjoy History Minute. Here we go. A taxi dancer is a paid dance partner in a ballroom dance. Taxi dancers work, sometimes for money, but not always, on a dance-by-dance basis. When taxi dancing first appeared in taxi dance halls during the early 20th centuries in the U.S., male patrons typically bought dance tickets for 10 cents each. Splash panel, which gave rise to the term dime a dance girl. Other names for a taxi dancer are dance hostess and taxi in Argentina. In the 20s and 30s, the term nickel hopper gained a popularity in the United States because out of each dime a dance, the taxi dancer typically earned 5 cents. The term taxi dancer comes from the fact that, as with a taxi cab driver, the dancer's pay is proportional to the time they spend dancing with the customer. When a patron presented a ticket to a chosen taxi dancer, she danced with them for the length of a song. She earned a commission on every dance ticket she received. Though taxi dancing has for the most part disappeared in the United States, it is still practiced in some other countries. There's no USS Rover in the books. USS Red Rover was a Confederate sidewheel steamer the Navy captured during the Civil War and turned into their first ever hospital ship after a refit. Because this is a Canadian book, for giggles, I looked elsewhere, and there was nothing named period correct for them either. CNC, PG rated strip club? Feels like it. I was reminded of the scene from A League of Their Own when Madonna's character yells at the team owner that she doesn't want to go back to taxi dancing when there's talk of shutting the league down. 10 cents of some slob can sweat gin all over me? I'm never doing that again. This is by far the most risque story in the book. More gratuitous Canadian skin on page 3, panel 3, as she packs up. One thing that comes to mind is, what? You have no friends or family anywhere? On his side or yours? You can send her letter or cable to asking for some money to get home? Plot device. And you decide to be a taxi dancer on your second job inquiry? Try harder. You should have known that our cigarette-smoking, bow tie, and pinstriped suit-wearing owner would cause trouble at some point. And he does on page 6, panel 5. You beast! Panel 2, where the sailor is buying tickets to dance with Dottie. $5 worth. I'm dancing with a dream. Is about $60 today. Not bad. The spotlights on page 7, panel 4 almost looks like Dottie has insect wings. Page 8, panel 2. One of the great things about building construction in this time period is nothing says run down dump like a piece of broken plaster. Damn you, drywall. The first house I lived in after getting married was built before the war, and I had to deal with patching plaster more than once. Awesome ending to the book.
All right. Well, at least Dance Hall Days by Wang Chung is stuck in my head now. So that's good. I don't mind that. Man, when I looked ahead and saw that this one was going to be 8 pages long, honestly, when I first read these stories, I felt they were all kind of punishing. But then I've had a good time writing up my CNCs, so hey, maybe that's part of the fun? Could it be? That being said, something is off with the proportions in this splash panel. Looks like Larry is using one hand just to hold his huge cranium aloft. And here we go into overdrive with the infantilizing routine on page 2, with Larry referring to Dottie, whose name is first mentioned in panel 3 of this page, as his sweet little child bride and innocent little wife in panel 2, and his poor little girl who is so darn innocent in panel 6. He calls her little 3 times in one page. And again, folks, he lovingly referred to her as a child bride. For someone with a clearly and weirdly dented arm, maybe from trying to hold up his hot air balloon of a head, as we can very much see in panel 3 there, Larry, maybe you could ease up on the put downs, eh? And we have another example of a story that should have a different title based on the dialogue. What with all these uses of innocent flying around. Oh, you didn't think there'd be more? Page 3 gives us a short break from all that, though, and instead offers up perhaps the worst drawing of a tree I've ever seen in a comic book, slapped up hastily, one hopes, in the background of panel 2. Even Bob Ross might just hit a person if he saw that thing. Panel 6 helps distract us from that travesty with a sailor that can perhaps read Dottie's thought balloon and a one-way sign that points directly down to hell. And don't worry, folks. A total sleazeball reminds us that Dottie is the innocent type in panel 4 of the very next page. Whew, we almost forgot. Both panels 2 and 3 of page 5 are bringing the ski jump noses back. And what do you know? But panel 5 features what? Why, it's perhaps the best drawing in the story, which is, come on now, a full panel drawing of a hysterical woman. Okay, this one isn't at all psychedelic or surreal, but that dress is lit. And all right, panel 5 on page 6 might fit the bill a little better, but yuck, what a scene. At least in panel 4 of that page, our resident scumbag briefly morphs into a dead ringer for one Harry Osborn. And hey, again, I had, the Marvel references kept coming to me when I was reading this, and that's Harry Osborn hair, people, okay? On page 7, Larry acts like a dick. Hey, what was he doing at the taxi cab dancer joint? Huh? Not just her presence there. How come you walking in there isn't a problem? Never comes up. Before piping off again in panel 6 with the innocent crap. But okay, In the end, it is the man who had things all mixed up in his silly little head. So I guess I should take the win here. All right. So here we go. We're moving on, people. That is the story content of the issue. All right. What do we got? We got spotlighted ads. There's only three ads in this book. So, and they're not great. So there's an ad for a mail away book on how to dance in this that I'm taking as my spotlighted ad. I mean, I guess I'm gonna talk about this. Let me see here. Full page ad. And the top of it is a big text block. It says, have fun, thrills, romance. Anyone can learn to dance. And a list of dances floating around the blurb in the middle there. Square dances, foxtrot, jitterbug, samba, waltz, rumba. Why put off learning to dance? Now, here's a much easier way than you ever saw. And it comes, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it's just order this crappy book of dances and you'll have a great time, like the badly drawn couple that's floating in the middle of the ad here. And, there you go. Here's a book. I don't know how you'd ever learn to dance from reading a book, but here you go. All right. You can send away for this and all your romance troubles will be solved. Points of commentary for me is they mention a woman who is supposedly named Betty Lee, who is a leading dance authority. I didn't realize you could become an authority on dances, but there you go. You get a 5-day refund window here. So I don't know how you have this book for 5 days and you figure out you're a klutz. You can mail it back and get your $1.49 or whatever back. I also love that it's shipped in a plain wrapper. They mention that in particular. Like, you don't want anyone to know that you need a book to learn how to dance. Like, this is risque material or something. So that's really all I got for spotlighted ads for this. Uh, Rich took the quite frankly more interesting one, and the other one was a rosary beads thing. And no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, the other one is on the back cover. Novena Rosary Cross of Seven Sorrows, and hold the cross close to your eye and look into each of the seven jewel-like crystals. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, we're not doing
Yeah, it's a
that.
it's a Viewmaster for your soul.
I think actually I did do an ad call out, one of those like advertising direct ones back like in the 20s or something like that, which just goes to show you how little there was in the book. But anyway, what I would call the winning ad, admittedly low bar, over $15 phonograph record value, 18 top hit songs, popular or Western for only $2.98. And it shows 9 inked records on the top half of the ad. The Western hit packages, Caribbean, Y'all Come, Bimbo, Wake Up Irene, Release Me, Counterfeit Kisses, Sing Me Something Sentimental, When Mexican Joe Meets Jolie Blonde, Worry Blues from Waiting, blah, 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 blah. And then popular hit package, Ricochet, The Creep, That's Amore, there you go, Heart of My Heart, Rags to Riches, and again, on and on and on and on. Like I said, it was this one or the dance one for me, the one that Max ended up taking. Take full advantage. Get both the popular Western packages for only $5.89. Jolola Sales, Box 496, Buffalo, New York, in Canada, 2382 Dundas Street, West Toronto, Ontario. Please rush me the items marked below. 78 RPM records, which is another dated reference in this day and age. There's like Slim Pickens, like I said, as far as the ads go for this, or Slim Pickens. He was famous about this time. Like seeing That's Amore as one of the ads was probably what pushed this ad over the top for me as compared to the dance one. So
Yeah, I gotta say, I didn't really read the full ad until you just did your read there. So that's Amore, obviously, biggest song on there. But for an old Laverne and Shirley fan like me, you had to go with Rags to Riches, which was like a song that their Fonzie stand-in on Laverne and Shirley would always sing. Like the tough guy, love interest, boyfriend guy that they knew. I forget his character's name, but that was his go-to song, sort of like how Richie Cunningham had Blueberry Hill, you know. So that song, for some reason, just that part of the song, and maybe a couple of times that character sang it in full, was something that stuck in my mind from a young age. So alive here on the recording, folks, an unexpected highlight in Rich's ad, because I didn't read that crap before before he did his ad read. So there, happy memories of Laverne and Shirley. I'll throw that at this comic for bonus points.
approaching the end. Got any last words? This is probably the death knell for the vintage military romance comics. We'll have to do something else for 2027. Can't find any more old titles. Maybe a non vintage military romance comic? I got one. Or a Sergeant Rock Mademoiselle Marie love story? Tune in a year. But to the book itself, our fourth romance issue, and I'm kind of thinking this is bottom half of a very small pile. I mean, all of these books have been fun, and none have been bad, but some are more so than others. Dance Hall Dame gets my overall dub.
Yeah, I gotta admit that's the best story in the issue in my opinion. Just because I didn't even put that in my last words with which story I picked, but just to remind you, Rich, Gothic romance comics are a thing. And remember, this is also a horror comic show, right? Right? Eh? Like I mentioned somewhere up there, I kind of hated this book when I was reading it, but I kind of loved writing about it. So I'm putting this one down as a win. And I'm also putting in a candidate for one of those Gothic romance comics. DC literally had a series called Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love. And why that's not something I can buy in a hardcover reprint, I don't know. It had some of the best covers of all time, and it has that title, folks. The Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love. So I'm putting in a vote right now for next year, okay? But Rich mentioned the Sergeant Rock and Mademoiselle Marie love story, and I just recently, for the heck of it, because I'm paying for that DC Universe app, and Rich mentioned the DC Legacies miniseries by Len Wein a bit ago. I was like, I haven't read that in a while, so I got out the app the last few nights. I read the entire series, and as he's likely mentioned to you before, I got to that story where a bunch of war heroes are meeting up in a bar and Mademoiselle Marie walks in last and she's like, "Oh, yeah, my son is here." They all mention how Frank's not here and they tell the story of how Frank Rock died, saving a little girl. They finally really fill that in. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, here's my son." And he comes in and he looks just like a young Frank Rock. Like I just read that last night. I had read it before, but and heard Rich mention it. But again, DC Legacies is a fantastic miniseries, and it has that little bit of war comic stuff in it too. And so again, you want to do a Sergeant Rock Mademoiselle Marie story, I am down. But also Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love. All right. Okay, so we're gonna move on, I guess, here to the end part of the show, which is called the Scuttlebutt, here in the latter half of the Weird Warriors podcast history. And it's where I remind you that we have an incredibly cool Facebook page. Guess what? It's called the Weird Warriors Podcast Facebook page. It's run by your good buddy Rich. He takes care of you real well over there. And to return the favor, maybe you could buy some of our merch. It's not really our merch, it's just our awesome logo that was drawn and designed by Bill Walco of theherobusiness.com and of Archie Comics fame. You can get that kick-ass logo on any kind of merch that Redbubble will sell you. And if you get that merch, you take a picture of it, you send it to us on Facebook Messenger to that awesome Facebook page. Rich will send you a Sam star, which is a clip out of a star cut from a flag that once flew over the home of War Comics legend Sam Glanzman. All right. He's still got a few left, and he shouldn't have. Okay. The other thing that we're slowly working on, because it's not we, it's me. So it's happening slowly. Did I mention slowly? We have a YouTube page where I'm uploading audio of our episodes to YouTube. And guess what that one's called? That's called the Weird Warriors Podcast YouTube page. And I've got like 80 videos up there, people. It's not like I only uploaded 4, okay? And I see the viewership numbers, so I know I don't need to be in a big hurry to put them all up, but I'd like to be done. Give me some inspiration, okay? Give me some clicks, give me some comments, give me a reason to go to YouTube, okay? I've given you one. We're there. All right. Also on the scuttlebutt here, what we've been doing is a free plug section where we talk about our favorite comic shops. And I'm taking the mic this time around because my favorite comic shop, possibly of all time, is The Outer Limits at 437 Moody Street, Waltham, Massachusetts. Website is eouterlimits.com. The proprietor of that store is one Steve Higgins, and he's been running that store since it opened in 1983. And he just announced, curse his name, and he doesn't listen to the show, but He just announced that he is going to be retiring on July 31st of 2026. So bringing the Outer Limits to the close of a 43-year run operated by one man who has never had a real job. He's just run the Outer Limits for that entire period of time to a close. So time's running out, people. You're going to hear this in February. You've got till July 31st to get to one of the best damn comic shops I've ever set foot in, run by one of the nicest and coolest people. Again, he doesn't listen, so he's not going to hear that I said that. So don't tell him. All right. It's again the Outer Limits, 437 Moody Street, Waltham, Mass. Website is eouterlimits.com. He's going to keep selling stuff on eBay under that handle too, eouterlimits.com after he retires. So go there, tell him Max sent you, and then, duck because he'll probably throw something at you. Okay. All right, so there we go, folks. That is the scuttlebutt. But we're not done here yet. Rich, the giving side of the hosting duo, has something else to give you. It is a teaser for our next episode.
Weird War Tales number 76. Don't Play with Fire. Huguenot Werewolf. That's an awesome band name. A story that's twice autographed. Who's? See you next time, sweetie.
Oh, yeah. We will see you next time. And who are we? Well, we're the hosts of the Weird Warriors podcast. We're the Batlin Bros. We're the Weird Warriors themselves. And this show, as I mentioned, is the Weird Warriors podcast, where we normally take a look at the Weird War Tales comic book series. But this time around, we did something a little more cozy with you. And so here on the Weird Warriors podcast, we promise you that we shall make love